Hujambo na karibu. In this lesson, we're going to be looking at Swahili verb extensions, specifically the prepositional verb extensions. So you might be wondering what verb extensions are in Swahili. They're simply little letters or suffixes that we put at the end of a verb to transform its meaning. So you might be wondering, why on earth would you need to transform the meaning of a verb? Here's a good example. In Swahili, the word for cook is pika. If you wanted to say, I cooked for her, if you say nilimpika, that means you cooked her. Okay? But if you added a verb extension, that would convey that meaning. And in this case, it will be alinipikia. So today we're working with prepositional verb extensions, which is an example that I just gave you. In other words, you learn how to work with the ia, ea, lia, and lea ending. All right. So when do we use prepositional verb extensions? So we use this verb ending to show that an action was done to or for someone or something else. In English, we would normally use prepositions like to or for, hence the name prepositional verb extension or verb ending. As noted earlier, we indicate it by using ia, ea, lia, or lea. And it's important to know this because there are other verb extensions like causative verb extensions that end with isha, esha. So that's why sometimes you look at a Swahili verb, it's one way today, and then the next time it looks something different. These are probably because you're looking at the verb extensions. So today's purpose, by the end of this, you'll know how to construct the ia, ea ending, or at least identify them when you encounter them. The root vowel in the verb will determine the ending. Okay, so at times other extensions are needed to make it work, but don't worry about all that. Today we're just going to be focusing on the fundamentals so that you're able to create simple verb extensions and also to identify them. One thing about it, it's going to need an object infix. So if you find this quite overwhelming up to this point, that probably tells me you're just beginning and maybe you haven't learned your simple verb structure. So this lesson is geared towards my more intermediate advanced lesson, and I encourage you to learn the Swahili verb structure first before you understand that. I have a free 5-day course for that. I'll link it below so that you can refer to it. But if you're comfortable with your Swahili verb structure and you simply want to know how the extension works, then stay tuned. So I mentioned that root vowels are going to determine whether the ending is an er or an air. So let's look at an example here. We have a root vowel that is I. So that is, if we have an a or an e in the verb, or an u, then the verb ending will be ia. So here, pika ends with pikia. Alinipikia chakula. Note I said you're going to always need an object infix when you're working with this extension. In this case, alinipikia, she cooked for me. The ni here stands for me, and me is the object. So she cooked food for me. If you didn't have a verb extension, then you would have alinipika, which would mean she cooked me, and we do not want to do that. And then we have the o, e, and so if the root vowel is o or an a, then our ending is going to be air. Example, soma is the word for read. Somea will be read for. Example, ulim somea kitabu, you read the book for her or for him. Now, sometimes you have double vowels like oa or ea. What happens is interesting because now you will introduce the le into the equation. Here's an example. So if you have oa or ea, then your ending will be lea. So toa, which is give, tolea will be give to. An example, ulitutolea hotuba, you gave us a speech. All right. Here, the to here is our object infix. Now, if you verb ending, your root verb has a double vowel, ia, ua, or a, your verb ending will be lia. So, an example, kimbia, we have kimbilia. Mtoto alimkimbilia mama. All right? Mtoto alimkimbilia. Okay, kimbilia. So if you say mtoto alimkimbia mama, it means the child ran away from the mother. But kimbilia, it's ran to or ran because. Okay, ran for. So, not a direct translation from the English, but you get the point. Now, again, if the root vowel is a, I, you have ia, or a, you have air, oa and air, you have layer ending, ia, ua, a, you have the layer ending. So if you're watching this on Spotify, you might not know this, but this is a video, so I hope you're able to watch it because this chart is quite important and it'll help you remember what we are working on. Or I will also include the notes in the description box. That way you have an idea of what's going on. Okay, so what we're going to do next is do a drill, and the drill will help internalize this concept so that the more you listen to it, the more natural this becomes for you. She cooked for me. Remember, you can always pause and then anticipate the answer or simply let it play so that you can learn. Alinipikia chakula. Alinipikia chakula. He bought me the house. The word for bought is nunua. So that's a tricky one because it has a double vowel. Alininunulia nyumba. Alininunulia nyumba. He told me a story. Aliniambia hadithi. Aliniambia hadithi. Now, some of you might have said aliniambilia hadithi because you know the word for speak is ambia, but the actual verb for speak is amba, and then ambia is speak to. Just in case you were wondering, aliniambia hadithi. I read the book to her. Nilimsomea kitabu. Nilimsomea kitabu. She wrote him a letter every day. Alimwandikia barua kila siku. Alimwandikia barua kila siku. So, in summary, we use this verb ending to show that an action was done to or someone or something else. In English, it would require prepositions like to or for, and it's indicated by lia, ea, lia, layer ending, depending on the root vowel. Okay, so at times other extensions are needed to make it work, and it will always require an object infix. So I hope you found this useful, and of course feel free to listen to the video as many times as you need. And if you want to continue with your lesson, simply scan the QR code at the beginning of the video or look at the description box for how to continue with your lessons. Thank you so much for sticking with me this entire lesson, and I cannot wait to talk to you next time.